Oh, we've got a graph. We're going to be graphing a point, or what we like to call an ordered pair. And what we first have to recognize on a coordinate plane, which is what this is the two axes that we have. We have an x-axis, which goes left to right. And what you notice along the x-axis is that to the right of 0, or the origin, the numbers are positive on the x-axis. But if we were to go to the left of the origin, you'd notice that the numbers are negative. The x-axis is what we call a horizontal axis because it goes left to right. Now our vertical axis, that's our y-axis, as seen here. The numbers that are above our origin, or above 0, are positives, and the numbers that are below our origin are negatives. We always graph a point, or an ordered pair, by moving to the x value first, and then the y value second. And wherever we land on this coordinate plane, that's where we put a point. It's pretty simple, as long as we can remember that movement. Let's start by making sure that we know what the 4 quadrants are on our coordinate plane. The upper right-hand quadrant is quadrant 1. And what you'll notice is that all the x values and all the y values are positive if you had a point in this quadrant. We go and we label them counterclockwise. So I'm going to go to the left to find quadrant 2. And what you notice in this quadrant is that the y values are still positive. But what about the x's? What you notice in this quadrant is that the x values this time are negative, but the y values, they're still positive, because we're still going up from 0 on our y-axis. If you continue to go counterclockwise, this is quadrant 3. And the special part about quadrant 3 is the x value and the y value are both negative in this quadrant. And finally, the last quadrant is quadrant 4. The x value is positive, but the y value is negative because it's below 0. Okay, let's look at an ordered pair and see if we can graph it. I know that you see several points already on this graph, but I'm going to graph a point on it first for you, and then we'll try to read where certain points are on this graph. So I have the point 4, 3. And what I want you to understand is that the first number, the 4, is our x coordinate. That's where we have to go along the x-axis. Now, where do we start? Well, we always start at 0. We always start at the origin, which is right in the middle of our graph where our two axes, the x-axis and the y-axis, where they intersect. And what do we recognize about the x value? Well, it's positive. That's the first thing I notice. And since our x value is positive, we want to make sure that we move to the right, to the positive 4 on the x-axis. So that means I'm going to go right here. Now, I am not going to put a point there yet because that's not my final destination. I now have to figure out where am I going on the y-axis. Well, this is also positive. And a positive 3 for the y value means we're going to go up. So if we were at positive 4 on the x-axis, we now from that location are going to move up 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. We move up 3 units. Every little grid mark that you see is considered to be a unit. And so we have our final destination of 4, 3 plotted. Now, a lot of people like us to label that point if we're not given a letter, and so I put the coordinate ordered pair right on the graph. That point represents 4, 3. That's pretty much it. Let's try graphing a point with some negatives in it. Okay, So the second point or ordered pair that they give us is 5, -2. Notice they separate the two numbers with a comma so that we know which number is the x value, obviously the one that comes first, and which number is the y value. It's the one that comes second. Again, we always start at our origin at 0. Okay, so let's start with the 5. What I notice right away is that it is positive. So my x is positive. How about my y? Well, my y in this case is going to be negative. So I'm going to start at 0, and I'm going to move first 5 units to the right along the x-axis. So 1 unit, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to pause there. And now I'm going to move 2 units down because my y value is -2. So that means I'm going to go 1 unit down, 2 units down, and once I find where my lines of my graph come together, I'm going to put my point. And I'll label it 5, -2. So I've graphed 2 points successfully. Okay, let's see if we can name where some of these points that are already graphed for us, where they're actually at. Now let's try to find where point T actually is on our coordinate plane. You see that it's right here on my graph. This is quadrant 3. And what I notice about quadrant 3 are the x values are negative and so are the y values. So I know that I'm going to have a negative number followed by another negative number. Now, how do I get to T? Starting at my origin, I move until I get to the line that is along my coordinate plane where T is. So that's at -5 on the x-axis. And I continue to move until I get down to where T is, which is at -5 on the y-axis. So in order to get to T, I need to go 5 units in the negative direction on the x-axis, and I need to go 5 units in the negative direction on the y-axis. First one done. Okay, point V. Point V is in quadrant 2. And so starting at 0, I'm going to move 2 units to the left, which is 2 units in the negative direction on the x-axis. And then I have to go up, which is 2 units in a positive direction on the y-axis. And so I know that my ordered pair would be -2 for the x value and +2 for the y value. Remember, I don't have to put a positive sign in front of the 2 because any number that doesn't have a sign in front of it, we always know it's going to be positive. The last 2 that I want to try out are a little trickier. Point W is above, it's directly on the y-axis, and it's right above our origin. So looking at my x value first, do I have to move to the left or to the right in order to get lined up with where W is? No. I'm not going anywhere on the x-axis. I'm staying right at 0. And to finish and find where my point actually is plotted, I'm going to only go up 1 unit. And going up is in the positive direction on our y-axis. I would say that my ordered pair is 0 on the x-axis and 1 on the y-axis. How about point U? Point U, if I start at my origin, I have to move 2 units in the positive direction on the x-axis, 2 units to the right. And then I don't have to move up or down any units on the y-axis. If I move 2 to the right, I'm there. Which means that +2 is my x value, and then I'm not moving anywhere on the y-axis, so 0 is my value on the y-axis. So we get the ordered pair of 2, 0. A quick recap, and we can look to the future a little bit. I'm going to show you some different ways that we see ordered pairs. One of the first ways is obviously using parentheses. If I have the ordered pair 0, 0, or 1, 2, or 2, 4. I could see them all in separate parentheses, and we call each one of these its own ordered pair. I could see them in 2 different tables. We will see tables throughout the rest of the school year. And usually the x value, when it's a vertical table, is on the left, and the y value is on the right. We could also see them in a horizontal table. The x value would be on the top, the y value would be on the bottom. And so our ordered pairs would go just like this. So you can see the different ways that we could graph a point. You could see the different ways that we are going to recognize where a point is on a graph, and you can see the different ways that points can be written. They can be written as ordered pairs in parentheses and also in tables.